Hello, everybody. It's Kelly and Jim from the X-Files Preservation Collection, and we are honored to be speaking with Mr. Rob Bowman tonight. Hello, Rob. How are you?
Good evening. I'm good.
It's so exciting to be talking to you.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
We're honored.
I hope you feel that way at the end of the interview.
Absolutely, we will.
Yeah,
we will.
Definitely.
Okay, the first question I would like to ask you is, what got you into the film industry?
There's two layers to it. Dad, when I was little, he was finding his way out of Kansas through theater, and then he has a beautiful voice, so he got into radio, and then he became an on-air personality. I think he had a show in Tulsa called it was the Pepsi Celebrity Hour or something, and it was like a little round table and two chairs and a Pepsi vending machine, and then celebrities who were crossing the country promoting their movies, they would stop in Tulsa and they would do Dad's show. So he was finding his way, chasing his dreams through media, through first his voice, and then he hitchhiked out to California.
Wow.
Chasing the dream. And he's a very affable, magnetic personality, different than I am. He found his way into Hollywood. But that was, I think he wasn't like producing and writing and directing until I was a teenager. But the fun was, at that time in the 70s, I could just walk on to the lot at Universal because nobody knew whose kid you were. So if you were Lou, the idea was, if you walk through the lobby at the Black Tower as though Lou Wasserman's your dad, the guards won't bother you. Well, 9 times out of 10 that works. The other time the guard goes, "Hey, you come here," and then I have to call Dad's office and bother his secretary and get a walk on. But going there to the studios, and even when I was a little kid, before I was 10 and Dad was doing the news at KTLA, he would take me, and I would see the show, I would see the cameras, and I would see the lights, and that it was a show, and it demystified it for me. And Dad also had a lot of friends who were very, very famous that I met when I was a kid, and they're just folks, they're folks who their career choice makes them popular. But we'd go swimming at their houses or whatnot. So the whole thing got demystified at a very young age, and so the sort of the twinkly part of it went away when I was young, and it really was about craftsmanship. And but I think the launch moment was when I was 4, Thanksgiving Day, sitting on the floor, back up against Dad's legs, watching Wizard of Oz. And I have to preface that by saying that my grandfather was quite an art. He was a painter. He was a sculptor. He could make anything. Former World War II sailor, and he had a shop, and he made things, and so I knew that things were made, even cute things. I have like a miniature general store that he made with all the little mattresses, and it's all handmade. So I knew that there was something about people making things. And when the monkeys came into the forest, and they look the way they look, and with their sort of sentry, almost sort of doorman jackets, and a sense of sort of malevolent regality to them, but scary as hell. I knew that somebody said, "That's the way I want them to look." I got that when I was 4. That's about all I got. I didn't know what a director was or anything. And then as I grew up, and then Dad and Mom watched a lot of movies, Dad knew the name of every director. He knew the name of all the actors. So we'd be watching a movie and he'd say, "Well, that's, this is John Ford. John Ford, does all these movies. He does Westerns, and he goes to Monument Valley." And so, but well before I got into high school, I was kind of becoming an encyclopedia of, who was who in Hollywood and what did they make. And Kubrick and all the guys. And then I realized that those people were really talented and they knew a lot. And if I was going to play in anywhere near that arena, I had to get to studying. So I started studying in my late teens. And, you know, I played football and I enjoyed my youth sports. And I played a couple of years of college football and I left because I never got hurt, but I didn't want to go on anyway. So once I finished football, I spent a little time in college, but then I got an opportunity to work in Paramount at the mailroom. And so I would do that, Xeroxing scripts, delivering scripts to actors' houses. But at night I was going to, you know, UCLA Extension. I was going to AFI classes. And, you know, when somebody says, you know, what film school did you go to? I said all of them. I didn't go to any particular one. I sort of built my own curriculum. I would figure out what I wanted to study, and then I would go find a place that was teaching that.
Right.
And you know, I never stopped. I still do it. I still watch some or all of a movie every single day. And I've been doing that my entire adult life. It's still fun to learn. But I was definitely a cinema guy. I was like really understood, certainly from film noir and the genres that used light in a very painterly or dramatic way to help tell the story. And, you know, television wasn't really doing that. So although I got working, and I was directing, I felt like I was leaving too many tools in the toolbox. You know, I had a great early start to my career. I worked a lot, but I was like most, I was a gypsy. You know, you're living in the hotels, going from San Francisco to Vancouver to Phoenix to wherever you go. And I made one little movie at Warner Brothers that was like a high school fish out of water story, which was great. It was with Mel Gibson's company, so there was a lot of cool stuff about that. But, you know, when you say cut on a film and they're all teenagers, they vanish. And if you put rollerblades on them all, they really vanish. And it became hard to get the movie made. And I had some great people. I had Jack Black in it, I had Seth Green in it. You know, I had a lot of cool people. But you know, I grew up like you. I was Night Stalker. I was Night Gallery. You know, Dan Curtis. You know, Dark Shadows. That's what I liked when I was a young kid.
Yeah.
You know, sort of the impossible. Is there a supernatural layer just around us? And so I was sitting at home one day after my movie. I finished my movie and I was like, I'm not doing that again. I got to go back to it because it's too hard. It's direction very hard. It's, you know, it just beats the shit out of your body and your brain is drained and you don't sleep. And so you have to love it. It sure helps if you love what you're doing, if you love the story you're telling. And I was watching Fox, which is a brand new deal at the time. And maybe they'd had 90210 on or something. I don't remember what the early programming was, but I see this night scene in a forest, and there's like a young kid who looks like he's 11 or 12, and there's a bright light over the top of him. I think I'm remembering this correctly, and he's standing in a swirling cylinder of leaves. And I went, "What is that?" And you know, coming soon, the X-Files. And I went, "I can do that." So I think the next day I called my agent and I said, just get me a meeting. Just get me a meeting. And fortunately, the one of the executive producers, Bob Goodwin, I'd worked with him on a previous show. So it doesn't mean he liked me. It doesn't mean that was a good thing. I don't know what he thought about me. You know, I was probably in my 20s when I first worked with him, so I'm sure he had some issues with me as being that young. But anyway, they gave me one in the first season, and this is good because this is going to lead me into a very important moment for my life on the X-Files. Is I ended up directing Genderbender,
Yeah.
which had plenty of its weird stuff. I really didn't know what the other shows were. I'm not even sure the show was airing yet. I don't remember if the show was airing yet by the time I was directing. I don't know, maybe it was, but I felt there was enough strange things in my episode. I was like, okay, cool. I get to do this, you know, sort of Night Stalker, Night Gallery, Twilight Zone thing. And there's a night sequence. I believe it was out in Richmond, which is farm. And I think David and Jillian and the scene sequence covered. You probably had to walk, if you know, in a certain pattern, about 2 or 3, maybe 4 acres. You know, maybe 3, not cubic feet. You know, but from way over there to way over there.
Yeah.
And I think Chris he didn't write the whole screenplay. I'm sure he rewrote it, but he had written this night sequence in like this single spaced, very dense, you know, here's what happens. And it was great. And I loved it, but it was massive. And the spatial part of the scene was massive. And I realized I couldn't shoot it in any normal way. I could, you know, like here's the environmental shot, and then here's their coverage, and I wouldn't make the night. So I called Chris. He doesn't know me from Adam. I mean, he said, okay, whoever this guy is, yes, he can direct. That's about it. And I called him. I said, look, I love this night sequence. This is not a quote, but I love this night sequence. But in order for me to get it all in one night, I have to camera cut it. Camera cutting means I design the sequence of shots and how they go together, and you can't change it. Usually when you shoot scenes, you know, the director gives the showrunners, you know, options of how to edit the scene, and they can change the scene dramatically. Well, you won't be able to change this much. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, he won't be able to change it at all until David and Jillian actually get to the barn and are looking through the slats at the ceremony going on inside. I said, once you get to the barn, you can choose if you want to be looking at David or Jillian, but prior to that, I got a camera cut it. This guy doesn't know me. And he goes, hey, sure, go ahead, do it. And I thought, wait a minute, you don't know me. If I mess this up, this is a big night. We've got a lot of lights out here. We got a huge crew. We got a smoking the air for hundreds of yards. This is a very expensive fix if I mess this up. And he just said, go for it. And I was like, who's this guy? I love this guy.
Yeah.
So I shot it, and he didn't hate it. And I did some things that I would never do if it was network, which is, you know, shooting some dialogue in complete silhouette with no coverage. Because it's one of those, hey, did you see anything over there? I didn't see anything over there. Did you see anything over there? Okay, all right, let's go over there. Well, I don't need close-ups for that if I'm on fire with my schedule. And I didn't. And I shot the night, but I remember driving home because it was a bit of a drive from Richmond back down to downtown. And I just thought, who is this guy who hires an artist and then without really any time to get to know me says, go for it. You know, I trust you. And it's not like I'm shooting a scene in Mulder's office and we can go back in a couple of days and reshoot the whole thing and it really won't cost much money, if any. No, this is a whole location shoot.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so there was a thing that happened, an incredible curiosity about Chris that began prior to doing that homework. And by the way, I'm sure when I did the homework and designed it, I knew this guy is putting faith in me and he doesn't know me and I got to nail this. So he'll let me do that again, right? Because you're kind of, every time you direct, you're kind of auditioning for the next one. Or you're auditioning for maybe a little more creative freedom, you know, and so that you have to develop trust with the showrunners. And so I finished that episode. I wasn't, you know, I was in Vancouver or I'd come back to LA and I have no idea what they thought about it. I don't remember what they thought about it, but they thought enough about it that I got invited back for one more early season 2. And that was Sleepless.
Yeah.
And why this story? This story because this is not television. And what was happening on television was nothing that I wanted to be a part of. And shows were winning Emmys that were not shows that I watched. I'm no barometer for mass, what the masses want. And those shows were very polished and very sophisticated. And, I didn't want to play in that sandbox. And not only, and they weren't calling me either. So it's not like I shunned them. I didn't knock too loud on the door, and they didn't open it. And so this was Chris talking about, shadow and light and, cinematic storytelling, and you had to be able to use the camera as a narrative tool. Well, most TV wasn't doing that. Point, record a face talking, point, record another face talking was the basic vocabulary. And I'm not saying that, Mark Tinker and all the great guys from that day, they were great. But I just thought there was a whole more cinematic way to shoot television. And I didn't understand why there were different rules for lighting and shooting television than there were for movies. Yes, there's more time in movies, but I didn't know why does it have to be so bright, like everywhere? And Chris was encouraging a different kind of thing. And I wanted to do the other thing and more, as he would say, chiaroscuro, which is the, contrast and shadow and light. So when I went back to do Sleepless, I wanted to stay on that show. And so I swung really hard in thinking about how I was going to shoot Howard's script. And how I was going to try to further define into specificity the visual language of that show. What was the because when you choose a visual vocabulary for a show, by whatever you choose it to be in specifics, you are simultaneously, if not actively, you are passively also not choosing other things. And so once you identify the things that this show is not, which is a lot of front light or whatever those elements were, then you have to make sure they don't show up on set, because that's a different visual storytelling. And so in pushing light and shadow, atmospheric camera moves, to and following the narrative. I'm not jumping ahead of the story. The storytelling always guided everything. Whatever the script said, then you just try to make that work with the cinematography and the camera work. And I'd also gone to Europe because I was talking to a friend of mine about how I was looking to define my look. And I had ideas in my head, but I needed to see something to encourage it, or to sort of move closer to the peephole and open it up and see what it was. So he says, you got to go to the Louvre and the Napoleon's museum, and you got to go just walk around for like a week and look at stuff. And so I did. And that was a backpack trip with, it's one of those $19 trips where you open the door to from the hotel and it hits the bed. I mean, it's so tiny, but it's a place to sleep. And I would walk every day. I was on the other side of the Seine from the Louvre. The Louvre was like right there, but I had to walk, 2 miles that way to get to the bridge. And over there was Napoleon's museum. And so I had to walk by Napoleon's museum every day to go to the Louvre. And so I went to Napoleon's museum, and I don't remember anything else that I saw in there, but I saw a painting of what I believe was Napoleon's wedding with Queen Victoria. Pardon me if I got that wrong. Being presided over by the Pope at the time. And I came around on this painting and froze. There was a beam of sunlight coming in from the upper windows of the church, coming down, and it was hitting the Pope, who was framed right. who's wearing white, and then Napoleon and the Queen, I don't remember if it was Queen Victoria, had their back to the sun, but because the sun was hitting his chest, his white robe, you were getting soft bounce light coming back on them. So they looked beautiful. She looked stunning. And then it was a wedding in the round. So they're in the center, and then the crowd went out from there. And as they move away from the light source, the crowd got darker and darker and darker and darker. This is a painting. I don't know how many years it takes to make a painting like that. There were hundreds of people in the church watching this, and he painted each one. And he painted the gold trim on her collar, and there was multiple layers. This was masterwork like I'd never seen before, not in person. But I step back and I go, wait a minute, okay, this is like one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. Why? What's going on with me? What is my reaction to this? Why is my reaction like this? And so I go, okay, first of all, there's no electricity back then. This is management of natural light. And he figured out how to focus the eye on Napoleon, the Pope, and the Queen, but you can still see in your peripheral vision the onlookers as then as the light got thinner and thinner and slower light is softer light, out to like darkness. I said, that is masterful use of light. And now I'm in Paris, and then I'm going to go to Amsterdam because I want to go to see the Dutch master paintings. Well, you go to Amsterdam, and in the hotel lobby, the postcards are Dutch master paintings. Like, you know, I don't have to go to the museum; they're right here, right?
Yeah.
And I pick up this postcard, and it's a woman who's a cobbler. Looks like she's in her kitchen making a shoe, and it's just flat onto her, but the sunlight is coming from the window that is behind her. So the light is just barely coming around her face because the light is back there. But it's scraping across the heavily hand-troweled stucco wall of her kitchen. And so the light and shadow on the front side where the sun hit and the back side where it shot was just extraordinary. And I thought, this is so simple and minimalist. Because the quest is, how can I light the X-Files in a completely different way than any other show in pretty much the same time they all have? Because that's really the deal is, sure, can you make it better? I need 5 extra days. Okay, well, what if it's an even horse race? The finish line is the same for everybody. So all those shows get 7 or 8 days, and you get 7 or 8 days. Let's see who can do it better. And I thought, we can't have more lights on set. There has to be a more realistic way to do this, because we're dealing with supernatural. So the more realism we put in the show, the more credible it is, the more science fact it is, the better. So sci-fi, you know, to me, 95% of it should be the sci, and 5% of it's the fi, right? It's got to be real. Right. Okay. So, and this is natural, you know, using Mother Nature to light it. So when I came back, I said, okay, I don't need all these lights. I just need big lights out the window. And I sort of distilled it down so we could also go faster, because now we're not hanging lights everywhere. And so I think we can shoot fast or faster, and we'll make a more cinematic, more beautiful show. Can we do that? Let's do that. Let's try. What if we can do that? And so that's what I swang for on Sleepless. And so I did it. I came home, and I had shot an all-nighter downtown LA in the lobby of the Harold Alexander building. And it was like a masquerade party. And, you know, I don't care how many nights you shoot all night, you never get used to it. And so I remember this. I'm driving home north, coming out of downtown, and I'm going through the 3 tunnels that are on the backside of Dodger Stadium. The tunnels that you go in and out of to go into the north side of, and Chris calls me. I think it's 7:30 in the morning, and I'm completely whacked. I'm bleary-eyed. I'm hoping I can make it home. And Chris calls and says, hey, I saw Sleepless. I really enjoyed it. I don't remember what he said, but it was something nice. And he said, would you consider being our producer director on the X-Files?
Wow.
Let's go back to me on the couch watching the boy in the swirling cylinder and leave, saying, I got to go do something that means something to me, that comes from, you know, what I love. I probably said, yeah, let me think about it. Okay, I thought about it. Yes, that was it. I was gone. I packed up and I was living in Vancouver for 5 years.
Wow.
Wow, that's amazing.
Is that the longest answer that you hoped I'd never give you?
That's a great story.
Yeah, it is. It's great. It's fantastic. You know.
And then it was just a great, you know, Chris. There was something very, I mean, he's a bright guy, like scary, sharp dude, frighteningly, wow. He'd write something and like, I was just hanging out with Chris and he sort of talks like a surfer because he used to be, but that's not what he writes. That's totally different when he writes. And, but he was very accessible and we got on really good. And no, it was not, I was not the guy that made the show with Chris, but I felt like at a lot of times, and maybe it was how I shored up my experience, because, you know, I'm living alone in a freaking hotel forever. I sort of felt at times like this is like Chris and I making this show. That's not a fact. And I'm not ignoring Vince Gilligan and Glenn and Jim and like Frank and everybody and how Bob Goodwin produced it. And, you know, I'm not ignoring any of that. But it was really good team sports, and therefore the conversations were very free. I used to call Chris so much. Oh my God, because I wanted to talk about everything. I called Chris so often when I was directing that he could walk, if the phone started ringing in the bullpen where the secretaries were, he could pick up anybody's phone and he'd just go, "Hi, Rob." Anybody's phone. Not, "Hey, Chris, I got Rob on the phone. You want to talk?" No, Chris would just pick it up and go, "Hi, Rob." Like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a day. "Hey, Chris, do you think the camera should go like this or should the camera go like that? And I'm thinking about bringing the light from here and over there." And just so I wanted to sync up with him. I wanted to get so far into his head that I felt like he could talk to me without him being there. And I could have conversations with him without actually talking to him. Right. Because I've had so many conversations. And, you know, wildly creative. But, you know, you're also terrified that you're not going to make up something that's worthy. And so there's, you know, the fear of creative failure.
Right.
But it was, you better bring your A game. You better bring your creative best. And because there was a lot of time where the camera would be looking and lurking and sliding around and nothing's being said. So your camera has to be communicating with the audience. What are you communicating? Are you communicating the right thing? Is the speed of the camera correct? Is the elevation of the camera correct? Is the lens correct? Is the light correct? Because that's all we're saying with the audience. David's not telling us what to think. Jilly's not telling us what to think. Cigarette smoking man's not in frame. Mitch is not, there's nobody there. So you have to communicate non-verbally, which is cinema. And it was, you know, scary, but it was a really great challenge. And it was what I was hoping for. It was, okay, big guy, you got the reins. Let's see what you can do. And then, you know, you just hope for Chris to see it and say, I like it.
I'll add to the episode Sleepless. A very young Tony Todd was in that episode, and we talked to him, and he had a lot of kind things to say about the episode, you know, and he said that, you know, before the X-Files exploded, he was glad that he was a part of that, you know.
Yep.
I was, you know, Tony Todd was plenty famous in my world before the. So when hey, Tony Todd's going to play this character, I was like, Tony Todd, I'm going to work with him. That's fucking great.
Yeah.
And he was very regal and you know, I'd worked with a lot of great actors before that, but he had the whole character fleshed out, and you know, he's evangelistic playing that character, so he's not meek and whispery and creepy.
Right.
He's big, bold, loud, and he's fed up, and it's time now to set this straight. And I remember watching, and plus he's huge. He's a big dude.
Yeah, he's a big man.
He was imposing and impressive in every way. So it was great times with Tony.
That was definitely a good episode.
What was your duties like being a producer? What did you do being a producer?
Well, I think the producer thing is just the way that they can give you a few extra bucks and make you stay on the show. I think that's what it really is that's when they throw you in this dark room called the world of the X-Files. And then as you're looking around for a place to sit, you hear the door close and lock twice. And it just means that you're here and you're not leaving. But back then there was no paradigm as there is now for what a producer director at the time was. They give you the credit, which, if you've never had it, it feels a little sexy or something. And then they give you a little bit of money and you feel like you're making more money than the average director. But what it really was is, hey, you're up there and we're down here. And so you just do whatever you need to do to just keep things going and make it better. And so there was a lot of working with. The thing I loved about the Vancouver crew is, they didn't have anywhere near the experience that, LA crews have, but what they had was enthusiasm and passion. And that's a lot more fun to deal with and nurture and encourage. And like, hey, let's, what if we did this and it's really cool? And they go, yeah, that is really cool. Let's do that. Might be a little harder, but let's try it. When you go down to LA and do that, they go, yeah, I just did that on a Spielberg film, or I just had a meeting for my Coppola film and we're going to do that anyway. And so that's what you get. And it's just not as charged of an environment.
Right.
So working with the crew in Vancouver and talking about how to light and doing different things, a lot of which none of us had ever done before. And then, and I don't remember when it happened, but Chris liked me shooting a lot of the other teasers for the other episodes. And typically because it's monster of the week or killer or creepy weird thing of the week, it didn't include David and Jillian. The teasers didn't include David and Jillian because that's the springboard event. Some weird thing happens, and then Mulder and Scully show up, right? So you can shoot that event. So it was a separate unit. And I think what they would do is if they let the director shoot any of it, there would be a little bit of it, but I would always go back and either reshoot it or fill it in great detail. So basically, I'm getting to the answer. I think I was just shooting 5 days a week, either on my episodes or everybody else's episodes. And it got to a point, I know in second season, it got to a point I wasn't prepping my episodes. I was busy shooting stuff for other episodes that I would come into my production meeting, like, here's your script, and like, okay, who's in my episode? And where the look, I didn't know anything. And they would just tell me in the production meeting what it was. And so it just had to be like, I had to sort of start making up stuff on my feet on the set because I didn't have a prep.
Right.
But it was like, Chris wants me shooting, I'm shooting. I'm going to do what he wants. And I love shooting the show. I didn't do that after the second season because Howard Gordon told me that I might have slipped a little bit into insanity. Because he came up, I think he said he came up during .com, and he might have come up on the ship. I don't remember, but he was talking to me about either .com or something that was coming. And he said the way I was answering him, he was fairly sure I wasn't psychologically present in the moment. And that I had so much going on in my head that I could only like partially hear him and partially pay attention to him. But I loved Howard, and will always. And so when he showed up, I wanted to hear him, but I think, and I was directing every other episode. So, prep shoot, plus shoot the other ones. And, and I was in really good condition. I had my bike up there doing huge bike rides, and So, and I was in my early 30s, so I was pretty sturdy, and I was still so far out on a limb that I thought it's not healthy for me to do that. So I for season 3, I'd started doing, I think, every 3rd episode. And it was, I just did whatever it took to make the show. This new paradigm where the producer director's on set from call till wrap and sort of babysitting. And I'm not a fan of that. But I didn't do that. I just did whatever it was that needed to be done. And whatever Chris or Frank or Vince or, anybody, Bob, anybody needed me to do, I just went and did it.
Right. Was there an episode that was probably the most challenging or hardest to direct? Did you have one?
I don't remember one that stood out. I mean, that I learned that if I wasn't miserable for most of the shooting schedule of an episode, it probably wasn't going to be a very good episode. That if you were really, if I was cold and my feet hurt, even if I was warm, with the right gear, and my feet hurt, or I was just underslept, that I knew that the harder the show was to make, the better it was to watch. And so when I'd get a script that wasn't as challenging, I'd go, okay, well, this one won't hurt as bad, but it's probably not going to be as good as the other one. So I actually like make them harder, because those are better to watch. I'll get over being tired. I'll catch up on sleep, but once I make an episode, it's there forever. Look, it was cold and wet for 10 months a year up there, but that gave us that free production value. That gave us an atmospheric element to the show that was just there,
right?
In the overcast days, and and breath, the cold breath. So you know what? I'm not cold anymore, but that production value is still in those shows, so it was worth it.
Absolutely.
I will say that I never really spent big money on cold weather gear. I always thought I was like a tough football player, and I don't need all that silly gear. I just suck it up. And I did, until I made 731. And 731, the day up Squamish Highway, where we did the day stuff and then the night drive-bys. Well, it was good because the wind comes down from Whistler down that canyon, cold wind, and it was raining. Oh. Well, I got a little too cocky in my durability and my, I can handle anything. I got cold and wet at call time, and through the clothes. That was a 17-hour day.
Wow.
I was basically frozen for 17 hours, and then I got up on top of the train in the night stuff to shoot. There was a satellite dish up on top.
Yep.
And a few times when I would come up with some really stupid ideas about where to put a camera, I didn't want to put anybody else in harm's way, and I said, I'll do it. Oh, you want to ride up on the train with the camera at night going 40, 50 miles an hour? That sounds great, right? We'll be right here. And like I said, I didn't want to,
Yeah.
And so I'm up in that wind chill, and that was a cold that I'd never felt before. And it wasn't going away until I wrapped, and I wasn't going to cheat the shots. I wasn't going to simplify anything so I could go home earlier. I was just going to rough it out. And then I finally, I think that following weekend, I went to the outdoor gear shop, Mountain Co-op or whatever it was, and spent my $2,000 in cold weather gear. I don't know. They're all really hard. And unfortunately, if they were written kind of simple, I'd make them harder. I'd do it to myself. I hope I'm not getting anybody in trouble, but Chris and I had a secret sort of Navajo code when I was directing. I needed him to tell me what he expected out of the particular script I was going to direct. So let's say he didn't write the original script. Somebody else wrote it. And I would read it and go, ooh, this is a doozy. This is going to be, you know, we started getting more days to shoot the show because they were just bigger. I'd read them and I go, this is pretty big. I don't, you know, we're not doing this one for the budget or anywhere near it. And then, you know, maybe I would talk to Chris. I mean, Chris didn't need me to tell him how to fix a script, but whether I did or didn't. And Chris is going to do a pass. Maybe Chris and Frank are going to do a pass, whatever. And then I'll get another draft. And so the draft would come back. And if the script stayed the same, that was Chris Navajo code saying, shoot the script as is. I'll take care of the money. You're not going to get yelled at. If the script got smaller, that meant try to hit our number, our pattern number, right? Let's not spend too much on this one. Sometimes, a lot of times, the scripts got bigger.
Wow.
And I'm like, we are going to go way over budget. But he wanted me, when he wanted me to make the show as big as possible. So then my job was to make the show big. And then because there's plenty of people, the studio, I mean, Bob Goodwin, if it needed to be big and lush, he knew how to do that. If he needed to squeeze it down, he knew. So Bob, you know, he wasn't just a typical line producer who's like, it's too expensive. He would say, okay, you can have the submarine, but you know, but sometimes you know, you can't be wildly over budget on every single episode. Then you're just irresponsible. So, and that was the code for all the years. I would wait for Chris to do a pass. And in the invisible ink was make it huge. And so I would take written sequences and make them bigger. So part of it was because I knew that I could make them bigger, and it probably wanted to be bigger, at least in my mind. And so I would make them bigger and make them harder to shoot, which of course created a tremendous amount of regret on the day I had to shoot it. It was like, why did I make up all that extra stuff? You know, and I got to go shoot it.
Right.
But it was always worth it. So I don't know. I mean, I was always cold. I was always wet. And the scripts to me were so different. I never felt like, you know, I was shooting the same scene. You know, the put together in the beginning with David and Jillian in the office, sure, okay, those are similar. But you know, talking about a ship that seems to be aging up in the Bering Sea, like we haven't done that one before. You know, nope. I felt like I never did the same thing twice.
Which is,
they're all hard.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you got to Fight the Future.
Yeah.
You know, before it was Fight the Future, you guys put out that fake name, or was it going to be called Blackwood?
Oh, I think Blackwood was just a name Chris or Frank came up to mask that we were making the X-Files movie.
Right. Yeah.
That was the name of the script. That's what the script was called.
We thought because you were afraid of like leaks or something.
Probably the scripts were red, so at the time you know red scripts wouldn't copy.
Right.
Yeah. You know, that was. I think I was making Endgame, and the submarine poking out of the ice.
Yep.
And that was a big deal because we're a season 2 show. We're not, you know, and we're Fox. You know, we're not that big yet, but. That was where the show went boom.
Yep.
Right? Like we're going to build the conning tower, and we're going to bring 150 tons of real snow into a soundstage and refrigerate it with a lot of refrigerant. This is a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, what are we doing? We're walking up to the submarine. Oh, wow, there's a submarine. We go up, we go down, we come back out, we fall down, submarine goes down. That's not much script to shoot. That's like a movie. That's not much script to shoot for all that. So things are changing now. But the idea of it was so big. And I remember calling Chris I don't even know if he was happy to hear this, but I called him and I said, I just want you to know that I believe the idea behind your show, the ideas behind your show is big enough to stick on the big screen. There's a movie somewhere here. And did Chris want to make a movie? He never said that. I don't remember him ever. Gee, after we kill ourselves, make it 24 of these a year, let's go do it. We'll beat the shit out of ourselves for 15 months one year. Let's do that, while we're making the TV show. I don't think that was Chris's dream. I think it was my dream. I don't think it was Chris's dream. But anyway, so we, came time to make it. And that was tough because we were still making the show. And I think the studio thought we were going to make like a $30 million version of the series. And no, we never spent $30 million on the series, but it seemed like we did a few times. We made some big episodes. So for me, and one of my episodes, Kill Switch, if I add up every day that I shot something for that show is 23 days. That's a lot of days for an hour of television. And that was a big episode. So to me, going to make a theatrical version of the show had to be really big. And then the studio, the feature department at Fox, they're not part of television. We're like, okay, so you guys are making this very successful TV show and you want to make a movie. You're playing with a whole different part of the studio, unrelated to television. The only thing that's the same is they drive into the same driveway to come to work. There's nothing else. Maybe they go like this in the hallway.
Yeah.
So they don't know us from Adam. They don't, who are you guys? Who are you, uppity upstarts thinking you're going to make a movie? We make movies. We made Titanic. You want to talk about making Titanic? I don't think that's a story you want to retell. A lot of funny stories on that. But but I got to tell you, as we dug in, we wanted the size of story we wanted. I was making Chris's life absolutely miserable. He didn't need to make a movie. Why? He didn't need that. But he promised me we would. So is he making it because he promised me? I don't know.
Glad you did it.
I don't know. I mean, I didn't spend that much time in person with Chris, so I don't know what he spoke to at the studio. Maybe the studio didn't want to make it. I don't know. But Chris would go back to the studio because Danny Sackheim and I we'd work on stuff in the script, and then this is what we want to do, Chris. And then Chris was like, that's going to be more money. Yeah, we know. And then Chris would have to walk over by himself to the executive building and say, hey, that time I came by the other week and said I need another 7 million, and that would be it. Yeah, sorry, I need 6 more million. And he just kept going back and going back. And those guys deal with feature filmmakers who want more money all the time. They know how to say no.
Yeah.
Right. And he went and fought. And I think Chris hated Danny and I for about a year. I think he was just like, you guys, I didn't need this. I had to go get yelled at, God damn it. But anyway, it was a massive experience. And it was just, communicating visually with that, 60-foot wide screen, 16 feet tall, and, sharing it to people who had never seen the show before. It's kind of hard to put into words what that meant. It opened at the Chinese theater, which, I grew up as a little kid going to the Chinese theater, and now there's my movie. Which is so weird. It's like, It's hard to believe, the X-Files would fight the future, and I'm standing on Hollywood Boulevard saying, this is surreal. My dad hitchhiked from Kansas, and now I got a movie opening at this fucking crazy shit. But
yeah.
Anyway, we made it
out of the park.
Yeah, you did. You definitely knocked it out of the park. Opening day, I saw it 13 times.
I love it.
Yep, saw it 13 times, and then right after that, any piece of freaking X-File merchandise I could get, I bought it all that day.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
but seeing it for the first time on that big screen, it was just breathtaking. Hearing it, the theme song, and then it opens up to the Antarctic and all that stuff. It was phenomenal.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And we got to rewatch it again.
Always. We've always rewatching either the series or the movie. So
Of course, trying to get my 16-year-old daughter to watch more.
I was watching one of my all-time favorites, The Blue Max, which is George Papard, John Gilliman directed, but really it's Douglas Slocum, the DP, who shot it. He also shot the first Raiders. He also shot Lavender Hill Mob. I mean, he is a DP who pretends there's just no dialogue in the script, and that he shoots with so much story in his compositions, and he's so expressive with every shot. And I love that movie when it came out, and I was 8 when it came out. I don't even know. I was nothing when it came out, and I loved it back then. And when I watched it again, I realized now, besides there's a film noir aspect to it, because this guy is destroying himself. So it's sort of like out of the past, where Mitchum gets hooked up with that girl and she's poison. You're like, get away from her, because you're both going down. Or Double Indemnity, when you just like, this is all, you're going to die. This is all going to work out bad for you, right? That's noir, right? You just watch people destroy their lives. So there's a little, I guess I kind of recognize that in Papard's character, but the affection that Douglas Slocum has for cinema and his vocabulary of how to compose, whatnot, it was just, just like, wow, this is so neat. So when we make, a show or a movie or the X-Files movie, whatever, you have to come to terms with the fact that once you say, okay, the show is locked, the cut is locked, that's it forever. And long after you're gone, you better like it. Better make sure all those cuts are just what you want, because you never change it. And, just as I got to enjoy, it took me 2 days to watch it, but rewatched The Blue Max and loved it, loved it. I felt like I was like 10 years old. And watching it again for the first time, like, wow, look at that. And they're all gone.
Yeah.
Everybody in that movie's gone.
Yeah.
But the art they gave us still lives. And so, and I'm not comparing the X-Files movie to the Blue Max. Different stories. But it's fascinating that stuff carries on, and people. I was just at the UPS store sending something to my dad. And the gal looked at my name and she's like, "Are you Rob Bowman?" I just think she's like, is this correct? Is this the correct address? Like they do at FedEx. And I go, yeah. She goes, like, Rob Bowman, like Castle X-Files. And I go, yeah. She goes, oh, I love those shows. And Castle was even 5-6 years ago, and X-Files. And the name on her badge was really little. I couldn't say, what is your name? I want to say goodbye to you. It's Scully. And I, at the time, X-Files hadn't come up yet, just Castle. And I said, why is your name Scully? She goes, because the X-Files. I said, I worked on that too. And she goes, I know. And it's like, stuff sticks with people.
Yeah.
Well, I'm busy trying to, hopefully I can raise my 14-year-old son, and he's going to be a really good quarterback, and, all that kind of stuff. And meanwhile, people are like, I loved Endgame. Oh, wow. Really? When was the last time you saw it? Oh, last weekend. Last week. And the thing is, like, if that was a car, it'd be vintage.
Yeah, well, just so you know, the X-File fandom right now, it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
It's absolutely huge now. It's like back in the 90s all over again. It's huge.
And there are so many people that are like watching it for the first time.
Yep.
So you go on all the groups and stuff, and they're like, I just watched this episode for the first time. And and I'm constantly reading about Gender Bender, and they're like, did you know Nicholas Leia was in that episode, Gender Bender?
Yeah. Well, that's where we found him for Cry Check, but that's another story.
Yeah.
That's really, I had no idea. I had no idea because that's not on my son's football schedule, and Jack's private quarterback coaches don't talk about the X-Files. So that is not in my world right now. I had no idea that people were catching up to the X-Files. And it doesn't look like a Wilson football, I don't know about it.
Yeah, and believe it or not, they had a convention in Chicago, a couple years ago, we were from we're from upstate New York, so we packed a big giant truck and threw a bunch of wardrobe and props to do a display. We drove all the way to Chicago, and the thousands and thousands of X-File fans.
Thousands.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I didn't know. That's really, wow.
It's amazing.
And all over the place. You keep getting talked about. Your episodes, the movies, so it's still relevant, and we're trying to keep it alive.
Yes, definitely.
That's really cool. Does Chris know this?
Yep. Chris, believe it or not, Chris reached out to Kelly,
we met Frank at that convention.
Yeah.
We met Frank at that convention, and then not long ago, probably maybe a year now, all of a sudden I open my email and there's an email from Chris Carter. Yep. So, I was a little taken aback by that. And then he did this major donation to the collection.
Yeah, he donated a massive amount of,
those moving pods you get?
Like, the metal things.
Yeah.
We had to schedule one of those moving pods from upstate New York to California.
He filled it up.
He filled it up, and then we had to schedule it to get picked up and pray it got to us. We had no clue what was inside it. We had no knowledge. And then, it came. We opened it up, and I almost fell to my knees and cried.
Yeah.
I mean,
good day.
I will
the
show you.
He wrote the pilot episode on.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You're gonna get those?
Yeah, I'm gonna get these and share with them. These are the storyboard cards that you guys used.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
For which?
We have 3 of these.
We have 3 of them. They're for a majority of almost every episode.
Oh wow, fantastic! That's great.
And Fight the Future. Those are the the story.
I got a lot of those storyboards. Holy cow!
Those are priceless to us.
Yeah, those are priceless. He's donated, like Kelly said, the original laptop he wrote the pilot on.
Yeah.
And that thing is a beast.
Yeah.
It's like what is it?
25 pounds.
Yeah. Windows 95 on it.
It's huge.
But hey, it's priceless.
Yeah. I mean, since you said you remember the pilot episode you watched? Did you watch the pilot episode?
Yeah.
That's the implant that Chris donated to us.
Okay. They took kind of
wow.
Yeah, so we were thrilled. So Chris knows about it. And like I said, Frank was at that convention, so we got to meet him, and he knows about the fandom now. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm not. As a matter of fact, I think 2 days ago, Chris texted me and asked because Chris played a little quarterback in high school until he decided he didn't like it and slammed to the ground, so he moved to baseball. But he texted me. The entire conversation was only about my son playing quarterback. That was it. We didn't talk about the X-File. No, what are you working on? Nothing. It was all about how's he doing? How's his arm? That was it. That was the whole conversation. And then good talking to you. See ya. That was it.
Well,
that's great.
Play a little bit. Wow, that's cool. Well, it was I was gutted when the studio would not let me use the Vancouver crew to make the movie because they earned it. And,
right.
They earned it. And I knew that although the scale was different and bigger, I think that they were already thinking that big. Just unfortunately, they were being broadcasting on smaller television. But that crew up there, they were all big movie guys in their mind, you know. And I don't think the transition would have taken more than a minute to say, okay, guys, it's not a 34-inch Trinitron. It's 60 plus feet wide and 13 feet tall. And they would have got, okay, we got it. I mean, they would have figured it out like that. But the show was the Golden Goose, and I couldn't touch the Golden Goose. And so I had to use, you know, we had huge feature guys working on the show, but I didn't have, you know, the gang wasn't together. The band wasn't together.
Right.
You know, I sort of had to throw a different guitarist and a different drummer. And yes, we played the same songs, but they don't sound the same. And, you know, and just the shorthand is not there. You know, I have all new people to communicate with, and there's no shorthand. So, you know, the things that were just, you know, just like, hey, we're going to do it like this, right? We're going to do it this really cool way that we always do it, right? The right way to do it. You know, we backlight it or something like that, you know, or how we're going to compose it. You didn't have to say it in Vancouver. It just happened, right? Well, now with the crew, you know, well, again, I just shot this thing with Spielberg, and I'm going to shoot this thing with Coppola, and they shoot differently. So, you know, and anyway, that still bugs me. It still pisses me off because it should have been the Vancouver crew who shot it. And I think that they would have done, I think they would have done a better job. And I think that they would have been like, we've worked 5 years for this opportunity, and we are going to nail, and they would have nailed it. I think they would have nailed every single thing about that feature. So that, you know, kind of leaving my brothers and sisters behind up there. I didn't feel that was the right thing, but I couldn't change it. So that's kind of the rub I have about that.
Yeah. Plus, they were so invested. They cared, you know.
Right.
Like, we've heard about that crew and how close knit they were, and like a big family and stuff. So you're probably right. They would have.
I know that construction and art department were building sets where, you know, maybe they got a late script, and they got a big script and I got a big set in a late script, the worst possible. And, you know, when we showed up to shoot those sets, those guys, I don't know who went home. I don't think anybody went home, because we were shooting at production design and textures in sets that shouldn't have been there with the time and money they had, but it's because they cared and they went the extra mile. And so, you know, God always loved those folks up there. Just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I have to say, I love Bill Rowe's crew in Los Angeles for the TV show, because Bill Rowe will actually punch me if I don't say that. He will actually strike me for not saying something. Anyway, ask me something else.
So you were involved with like all my favorite episodes, DPO, Arcadia. Got any good stories for me from any of them?
Well, I didn't do DPO. That was Kim, wasn't it?
Believe so.
Yeah, I think that you're just on there as producer.
You know, when Kim was directing, I needed to stay as far away as possible. Kim uses up a lot of oxygen.
Okay. Never got a chance to meet him.
He didn't need me around. But that's why you know, I knew that he was, you know, he's like a nuclear power plant. You know, he's just he's totally self-sufficient. And I was dying. You know, this was season 2 when I was doing every other episode.
Yeah.
And, you know, Chris needs, you know, needs another one of me or something, or whatever he needed. And I said, you should look at Kim Manners. He was a little older than David and I, the Nutter and I, but he's fiery. You know, he's really passionate. And I think he's at a time in his career where he's done a lot of network stuff. Mm-hmm. And we weren't doing network stuff. And, you know, directors could get the equipment that they had always wished they could get. Well, now you could have it. And some directors that we did that for, they didn't know what to do with it. You know, they'd spent many decades of their career saying, well, you know, geez, if I had the time and the money, you know, I could have made Schindler's List, you know, but I never did. So, you know, of course I can. Then when you go to the X-Files, and it was one story, I won't name the director, but there was a convention or something, and they're in the production meeting, and Bob Goodwin says, don't quote me, I'm, you know, it's a long time ago, but Bob Goodwin says, oh, how many people do you want in the crowd? And I think the guy had put on his experience network filter, and he probably said, you know, can I have like 30 or 60 or something? And Bob says, how about 300? And went, oh, yeah, that'd be great. The problem with 300, you got to figure out where to put them and how to shoot them, right? And then, okay, and so I don't know if it's the Steadicam or the crane. We'll say the crane. The crane. Do you know how many days you'd like to have the crane? Oh gosh, crane's expensive. You know, maybe, you know, could I have it for like? You know what? We're just going to give it to you every day. You just have it every day of the show. And it was like, whoa, what is happening? This doesn't happen.
And
so
giving
directors the tools to, you know, be creative, you know, to expand. And a lot of them didn't know what to do with it. Well, Kim did.
That's good.
Kim was just fine. So
you guys were an amazing team.
Yeah.
It was a good
All
team.
of you. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
Was there ever any episodes that were rejected that you thought that, you know, we should have made?
By the studio?
Yeah.
I have no idea. You know, what's my version of that? Just keep making the show. Whatever. Just keep making the show. I mean, at some point we didn't even have a budget. At some point, what season was that? 5 or 6? I don't think there was a real budget, because they knew that we had to finish shooting a show to get it into editing, to get it into music and effects and color timing to hit the air date. So they thought, well, how much can they spend in that? You know, it can't be crazy. They're not going to spend $100 million an episode. They don't have the days to do it. So it was literally just, we would just make the biggest episodes we could, as long as we didn't miss an air date. I do remember being told this: don't worry about how much it cost, but we could not miss an air date. And so that's what we did. And so the budgets were just like, I don't know, it's going to cost a lot, I think.
Wow.
And they did.
Have to figure that out.
You know, you're asking me about DPO or, you know, we knew, the directors knew, David and Kim and I knew that this was a place that you could fully display your cinematic storytelling skills, right? And if you have shortcomings, they'll show up. Whereas in a lot of other platforms, you know, network at the time, the time and the money is so restrictive that you can barely just pull it off. Well, that wasn't the case on the X-Files. This was like, okay, you think you're an artist, you think that you're a good film, let's see it, right? And so when David would go out, you know, always nervous when David was shooting, because holy shit, what's he gonna do? And especially when he and I would do a 2-parter, like, am I first and then he's gonna like blow my socks off in the second one, or am I second and I can't follow up what Nutter did in the first one? And so it was this really healthy competition, but it was nerve-wracking. And I had the same thing with Kim when Kim and I did Terma and Tunguska. I think Kim did part 1, I think. And yeah, I did part 1 because I remember watching it saying, I don't know that I don't even know I can make mine not better than this. I don't know if I can make mine that good, because he had done such an amazing job. So you'd go home to the hotel room and, you know, start doing your homework, and like, well, I can't just over direct it to beat Kim, because then I'm not being a good storyteller. So what am I going to do? And it was literally just try to make every moment perfect, every camera choice, every moment with David and Jillian as perfect as I can, and the guest cast, and hopefully I'll make enough good decisions that it will be as good as Kim's. You know, I hope, you know. So it was, that's really what I remember. There was no, I called up Kim one day and talking about a shot I saw in his dailies, and he basically told me to fuck off. So I didn't call Kim anymore.
Okay.
So I was like one shot, and it was like one phone call, like Kim, that shot, you did, and that, I'm not really, go fuck yourself, Bowman. Click. So, like leave me, like I would do the same. It was like, leave me alone, I'm trying to figure it out. So I don't have stories of hanging out, helping, on set with other directors. The only stories like that are, when Chris would say, you're shooting the teaser for all the other episodes. And so, I got a lot of practice tonight, a lot of walking into the hotel at dawn on Saturday morning.
Crazy.
Yeah, right.
You guys put a lot of work into.
Yeah, you did. A tremendous amount of work, and as the show progressed, it just got better and better and better.
I agree with you. And I think one is experimentation, early on experimentation, and like, are we going to get away with doing this stuff? And then it sticks. I'll roll back. I remember on Gender Bender, Fox was this new channel. Maybe they had 90210, or maybe they had something else. I don't remember. But it was like they didn't have as many affiliates, not even close as 2, 4, or 7. So if 100% of the people who could tune in to Fox watch the show, and like, I'm guessing like 25 to 40% of the people who could watch ER would beat us in the ratings because they had so many more outlets. It was the show's broadcast. So I'm like, nobody's watching. We can do whatever we want anyway. Like, who's going to watch this show? It's like, there's like 20 people. It's only broadcasting to 30. It's only broadcasting to 30 homes. Let's do something different. So the idea of following Chris's lead to be cinematic, to use, a painterly approach in the lighting, and to have a camera that was also a narrative tool, not just a capturing tool. We thought we were just being sort of like the weird kid in school to get attention. Well, then time goes on and they go, have you seen that show? I mean, they tell these really weird stories and the way they shoot the show. And so the thing that we thought we were doing just to be weird, wear the heavy metal t-shirt in kindergarten. Yeah. Now all of a sudden everybody loves the show because the way we shoot it and the kind of stories we're telling. And it was like, well, no, we were just experimenting. We didn't know you were watching. Like, no, keep doing it. And we kept doing it. And then after a while, it goes from experimentation to, you do enough repetition that it becomes, you get like muscle memory. Yeah. And now you can even stretch a little further. And, as we went through the DPs, and landing on Joel, Joel was like, let's just do anything. Like, he didn't need extra anything. He'd like, somebody'd be a little dark in a chair, and he'd walk over and he'd swing a lamp around and turn on the lamp, and he'd go, hey, I can see him now, let's shoot. And it looked gorgeous, but it was fast and realistic, and he understood that the realism part of the show was really important to help shore up, the supernatural stuff. The supernatural stuff is a big favor you're asking the audience. The whole rest of it, you have to say real, ultra realism. We're grounding it, right? David's delivery is part of the ultra realism of the show. So, but yeah, as it went on, we got it got easier to make it better, and it was less terrifying to be brave. And therefore, maybe you're not being as brave, but we're just way out there. And luckily it was well received. I know at the end of season 2, the show got really big, and I went, well, this is cool. I mean, people like the show and they're watching it. That's cool. It's not going to get any bigger. It's just strange. Yeah. I think by the time we came back into the beginning of season 3, it got bigger.
Yep.
And we're like, okay, this has got to be it. This has got to be the ceiling. And then by the time we're halfway or quarter of the way through season 3, by the time we were at the end of season 3, it was global nuts.
Yep.
And it was like, we were just like a bunch of guys in the woods with creepy sounds, and maybe it's an alien, maybe it's a wolf, and we didn't know that the whole world was going to watch, but that's okay. It just allowed us to keep making them.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we're glad you did.
Yeah, we're definitely glad you did. I know I am. Changed my life.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you very Anything else?
I probably have a million questions, but I'm taking in all I've learned. So I never realized how much work went into directing,
right.
How many different little details you had to think about.
Imagine the worst possible version of it, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's as hard as you think it. No, here's the deal. You can direct a lot of different ways. The best way is the hardest way. And the best way is you start on page 1 with the first line of the first paragraph, and you go, what am I shooting? What's the first shot? What's the best way to see this? And then you stare at the screen in terror for 20 minutes. Something starts to come to you. And then when you finish that one, then you do the next one, and you do it hundreds and hundreds of times. And when you're done with 100+ hours of homework, you have no idea if any of it's any good. And then you're going to go shoot it. Luckily, since you made it up sitting alone in your hotel room, and you didn't, I used to just make it up. Maybe I talked to Chris a little bit doing her homework, but most of the homework I just did by myself. No clue if it was any good. And then you start shooting it, and there's dailies that the studio watches and all the writers watch. And now your guesswork is on display every day. And if you screw it up, you're going to hear about it. But that's the best way to do it, because then everything is delivered to the audience in the finest way I can figure out how to do it. You don't have to do homework to direct. You can just walk in and wing it. You're just going to make a lot more mistakes.
Yeah.
And you're going to miss a lot of opportunities. So the best way is the most painful way, unfortunately. So anyway.
I think that.
Hey, by the way, I'm a full-time dad right now. That's all I do. I'm just a dad. Oh. So, and so we can do this some more if you want. I don't get up and go to work. I'm just here. So
well, first of all, that's an amazing and important job. So don't say it like just a dad.
Wait a minute. I will say that whatever my accomplishments or victories have been over the past decades in my film career, none of them have the highs and lows of being a dad.
True enough.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. We concur on that one.
Oh my goodness. But anyway, but we can do more. We can do more tomorrow if you want.
Right.
Okay.
You want to do more tomorrow?
Sure. Absolutely.
All right.
By the way, I have very thick skin. You're also welcome to say, no, I think we're done talking to you, Rob.
Are you kidding?
Are you kidding?
Like a dream come true for us.
Listen, we have been trying to get a hold of you for months and months and months.
Yep.
And it's like, God damn. Then I said, Kel, because we talked to Frank, I said, Kel, send an email to Frank and tell him, thanks for the we appreciate his time, that if he knows anybody that's willing to talk to us, big parentheses, Rob fucking Bowman, that
hint.
hint, that I would, cherish that.
Well, look, I don't know how long we've talked, but I know that we've only scratched the surface.
Definitely.
This is real. Like we're standing at a convention and I got to go, kind of stuff. There's so many more stories, a lot. So
we can definitely talk again, just to so that the X-File fans are gonna just eat this up. They're gonna watch this. They're gonna see this. When we get the museum up and running, we're getting all these interviews that we're doing, and they're going to be played in the museum, for all the X-File fans.
That's great. That's really cool. I hope that one of the things I like to convey is I'm a guy who understands that there's a craft in everything. There's a craft in throwing a baseball. There's a craft in driving a bus. There's a craft in, running schools. You have to master the craft, and it's hard to do, to get really good at it. And it's also good. It's very hard to poke your head above the crowd to say, can I be invited back again? Because that's kind of what you do as a director, is you just want to, like, if you think I did okay, can I come back? And but there was something about Chris. There was something about Chris that felt like, I will give you everything you need, and I will protect you as long as you deliver.
Yeah.
And I, by the way, I lived it over and over and over. That's the truth. That's what he did. And, like, go for it. I don't even know what you're going to do. Just go for it. But it better be awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We heard that from, we talked to one of the prop masters, and I was like, well, how do you, like, does Chris tell you, like, what he wants the things to look like and stuff? And he's like, he tells us to go ahead. Just, he trusts us. And I was
right. So what do you learn? What do you learn? What? And I'd learned it before, but it was cemented with Chris, is hire the right people and let them do their jobs.
right.
Right.
And he did that 92% of the time. There was 8% that we won't talk about.
All right.
Okay, I gotta go. Apparently.